Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I know probably what's on everyone's mind this morning. Madela.
Why? I'm glad that you
My dear. Huh?
I know. What are people thinking about?
Before we talk about it, I need to deliver a message from Dr. Sheldon Sumter.
I can see his face right
Mr. NYU. He says that he says that he's at the White House. He was there at 10 o'clock this morning. And he says to please convey this message to Ms. Barbara.
Convey it?
Yeah. He said that he had some words concerning gratitude. And I thought he had this whole litany of things to say, right? He said, tell her that gratitude is an internal thing. And the result of gratitude is joy. And without gratitude, joy does not exist.
So why didn't he convey it himself?
Because he was not on this morning. That's when he called me and told me to go be at the White House.
Gratitude is internal, and without gratitude, there's no joy.
And the results of gratitude is joy. Yeah, so.
Okay.
He's at the White House.
That's good. That's
Yes.
In Washington?
No,
the White House.
the only White House that I know. Yeah.
That's the White House.
They NYU took what 30, 40 students down. He was one of them. Of course he was one of them. He's supposed to be there.
I mean, here.
Okay, here we go. I think it's significant that he is there with what has happened in terms of Madela's transition, and I've been on the phone ever since it took place with people from back in the day when we did what we did, the Free Mandela stuff, and I was talking with Ron this morning. And he was doing the numbers in terms of years in prison subtracted from something. Anyway, everything he did came to 10. And then he could remember the year he was born. In 1918, I'm doing it in my head, it came to 10 also. So and that's significant in terms of what?
What is change of government in there?
Yeah, change it. 10 is change the government, but 1 plus 0 is 1, which is God. Everything that's taking place, I believe that what people are seeing, they don't understand. I believe that. I believe that the transition is when it happened, what I felt, it was like a quasar being born. When the star collapses, the light just.
That's how Romeo described something.
She left.
That's how I view the transition, and I did not think that. Well, first of all, everyone knew he was going to die sooner or later. But what most people didn't know is that when he contracted tuberculosis in prison, they did not treat him. So he should not be living.
So that explains the continual problems with them.
Yes. And for him to live to be 95, that says a lot.
Yeah.
That means that the Creator kept him in this earth. There's no one on earth who I know of or can think of who lived, who exhibited forgiveness more than he did. No one. Because I never met him. I never saw him in person. But the tears flowed when the announcement came because of the connection that was there. I mean, the picketing of the South African embassy, sitting with Ron Dellums, discussing the introduction of bills to institute sanctions against South Africa until they release him, to Kennedy Rhodesian Chrome, repealing the Rhodesian Chrome Act, and with the supplement for South Africa based on Mandela's imprisonment, all those things just came rushing back. Fundraising, marches, the idea of whenever we spoke, it was understood that no matter what we were talking about, you always included something about free Mandela in the speech onto the college campus that we went to. Every demonstration had to mention him, and the reason was so that we could make sure that he didn't die. And if it had not been for the world publicity that he got, we do believe that they would have killed him. There's no doubt about it. And the idea, the thing that struck me also is that the last lion of Africa has gone, but the brightest light. Jules Naefi, Milton Obote, Patrice Lumumba, the whole, you can go down the list, Ikutere, again, you go down the list of people who were really, really interested, instrumental, Nkrumah, in actually doing something on the continent, who were subverted, who the CIA made sure they didn't, through various methods. So this in itself spoke volumes, not only because of the forgiveness, but by the way he went about uniting that country as much as it is united, I should say. And the methods that he used are unorthodox, to say the least, but they work. And now the question is, that's on the lips of a lot of people, is what's going to happen now? Well, my observation was that the youth were in the streets celebrating him. And movements are usually birthed with the youth, or they're squashed by the youth. And the youth are very much in support of the government that was set up through him. And I don't think that the ANC members who would actually go off the rails, off the reservation, I don't think they would have enough influence to muddy the water, so to speak. At least I hope not anyway. And the reason I say that is because there were quite a few, based on conversations of ANC members who bought into that whole idea of forgiveness. And one in particular talked about how he was angry with Mandela for what he did until the rugby match. And when he saw what happened at the rugby match, his whole attitude about that changed. So, I also think it's interesting that it's like everything on earth stood still. It just stopped. And the same thing happened with King. I remember when he was assassinated, that it was like everything stopped. But those are the only two people I can remember who everything stopped for. It didn't stop for Kennedy. Cuba and Russia was not upset about that. But when I talk about the condolences that were pouring in, now keep in mind, it stopped for people who sought forgiveness, who sought reconciliation, who saw mankind as one. That's who it stopped for. It's by no means insignificant at all.
But I wonder if that was a chord that resonated because of its spiritual nature. It connected with what's buried so deeply in people that resonated in them. And as you said, they may not even understand, but they felt
Yes.
something.
And still experiencing it. I last night I was watching the news, and first let me say this. I got a text from Keisha, and one of the things she said was, and I paraphrase it, of course, that the only time that she had felt a tinge of jealousy is when she saw Michelle sitting on the sofa with Madela, because that's one person in her whole life who she wanted to meet. And I thought that very ironic, in that during the time that she was conceived, that was one of the things that we were really pushing. I thought that was very ironic. And I had no idea that she had that kind of affinity for him until this. But last night I was watching the news, and of course I was soaking in everything I could concerning it. And this guy from the sheriff from Pickens said that his flag was at half-mast for a patrolman who was killed in the lower state, but it would go back up after his funeral. He felt like the flag being at lower to half-mast was for people, for Americans who had given their life for this country, and no one else. Which is a very, very racist statement. And he said, just my opinion, you can't dress that up when the flag has been flown at half-mast for Sadat, for Malcolm Bay. I mean, you go down the line. So that was not it at all. And again, I say that because the only place where I've heard that is in South Carolina. It seems like everything that's unsavory and everything that seems to undergird racism with a passion emanates from this state. And that does not bother me in a way that, oh my God, here we go again. No, not at all. It speaks volumes to me. And it says that, to me, it says the only reason things happen where you are or in your presence is because you're the one to do something about it. Nothing comes to us, nothing crosses your path that you're not supposed to deal with in one way or the other. And deal with it does not mean necessarily always doing something physically. Sometimes it's just being still. So I think it's what imperative that we do not pass this moment as though it's just another moment in time, because it isn't. It isn't. It's not only the end of an era, but it's the beginning of an era. It's a new age. It's a new light that is coming into to being. And I think that we have opportunity to transition from viciousness to forgiveness if we choose to do so. And the earth won't do it if the people who are searchers of light don't initiate it. So that's something that has to be given to the universe for the universe to handle. And the universe only handles what emanates from the people of the universe. And so I leave it there for now.
That's interesting you bring up forgiveness, because I had a discussion with my kids in class yesterday about Mandela, and that's what came up, the forgiveness.
And see, the backstory with that is that the negotiations for him to get out of prison had taken place for a couple of years before he was released. And another backstory is that he had this prison guard who he communicated to the outside world through. And it was more than just to his family. But of course it couldn't be said. And during the time of the negotiation, it was understood that it would not be a Mugabe type thing that took place in South Africa. Meaning that Mugabe said, we're going to take our land back and begin to kill folks, you know. And that in itself speak volumes in terms of the negotiations that took place. And I don't know what pushed the clerk to do that, but he did it, and that's what's important, that he did it. So, there was such an affinity for Madela because a huge amount of finances that went to the ANC came from this country. And it came from students like we were at that time. I mean, we did fundraisers all the time. So, and at the risk, of course, of being labeled communists or traitors or whatever. It didn't matter.
That was going around.
Yeah, the worse the name, the worse the label that they put on you determined how important you felt you were.
You thought you were on the right track.
Yeah, as long as they talk about you like that, you're good.
So in the end, though, one man, the act of one man truly changed a nation. Because had he not chosen internally to forgive on an individual basis and then live it out in his larger environment, they could have come out and they could have said, okay, all you folk are going, this is just we're going to take out. I mean, truly, one man's decision changed a nation and the world.
And you know what else? One man's decision also instituted violence against the South African government after the Sharpeville massacre in 1961. The ANC took up arms, and that was when he left and went, they say to Europe, but sources say to Russia, to Patrice Lumumba University in Russia, where they trained revolutionaries. So,
Yeah, that could be much worse bloodbath.
yeah. So he went from violence to prison to peace in prison. And I also think it's, I remember seeing it when I first saw the movie Invictus. I thought it was ironic that the one poem that everybody in our high school knew was Invictus. We had to learn that. And to this day, if you walk into a crowd of 5,000 people and begin reciting that poem, you'll be able to tell everybody in that place from Sims High School. Because every one of us knew that poem. And that's how, when we come together with each other talking, that's what we do. Invictus. I thought that was ironic. That was the thing that he attributed to maintaining his stability and sanity while he was in there. There are those who visited the prison who talks about, they say, quote unquote, is haunted. When actually what they're talking about is the dark energy that's there because of the atrocities that took place in that prison.
Yeah, you can feel the dark energy there.
You went to Robben Island? I wish I had been there. Yeah. Robben, you know, you could tell people who really were involved with it. All you had to do is ask them to spell Robben Island, right? And you knew the ones who were perpetrators, yeah, and the ones who were not. What in, you know, so it was. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of emotions that I have experienced and am experiencing as a result of what has transpired. I did not, for a moment, doubt that that Obama was going to be was going personally to the memorial service. I didn't doubt that for a moment. From the moment I heard it, I figured that would happen. Because, I mean, by virtue of the fact that the first political move that he made was in support of freeing Mandela. So, and for Mandela to have such an influence on his life. And I also believe that it was a timely transition because in his first term, he would not have been able to say some of the things that he is saying in relationship to how he felt and feel about Mandela and the movement in South Africa. There were people from the ANC who came to this country to observe how the civil rights movement had been organized and how things were going, how things were achieved, and how restraint with some and there was not so much restraint with others. So they were in and out of this country observing the civil rights movement and constantly in contact with people in this country.
Well, that's interesting because it was the National Party sent a delegation here to observe the Jim Crow laws.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
basically what they took back to South Africa and
And,
establish apartheid.
and took it 20 steps further.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's what they did, yeah. So the whole idea of it has to be, well, let me say that we have to be sensitive enough to what's happening to at least step back and take a breath, to feel what's going on. Last night I was tossing and turning and I got up and I ended up in the guest room. That's where I slept. And I understood the reason I was there. There were so many, I had dark encounters to the point where I was waking up in a panic. And I realized what was happening. It was not dreams, it was not nightmares. It was in another world where things were transpiring that they're very difficult to articulate. But it was like there was a fight for my soul. And after one of the things that happened, I woke up again, I went back to sleep, because I was in and out of sleep. And I got up and sat on the side of the bed. And I began to breathe Yahweh in a room. And I felt an ease, a relaxing, something that came over me. And next thing I knew, it was morning. So and I don't know what that means.
when was this?
Last night.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but I do know it means something. And it was like in each segment there were incantations that were in my ear, and I could actually feel the face against my ear with those words that I couldn't make out what they were, but I could actually hear them and I could feel it. And one of them that I can articulate is that I saw the ground was wet and it was dirt, it was no grass at all. And it was like I was moving across the ground, but I knew something was beneath the ground moving me. And I was not walking, I was actually moving by something under the ground. And I knew that it was a hand that was moving me. And I felt the evilness of it. And that's one of the things that I woke up in a panic, dealing with that. And there were other things that it's just difficult for me to describe, even though I can see them as I talk about them. So, and again, I don't know what that means, and I'm not trying to label it at all. But I feel that I needed to at least share that, so that you can see that there are things that are taking place in this earth realm that's up to this point have been foreign to us. And but they are by no means disconnected from us at all. That by no means are they disconnected from us. I believe that we are going to be able to experience a change that the world has never seen before. You know, we talked about the influx of light to an extent that people would recognize it but not know what they see. I think that's where we are. I believe that that's where we are.
It feels like a graduation.
Right. I mean,
And,
yeah.
you know, we had to be at a certain point in order to be receptive to the light that burst forth
Yeah.
when he passed.
And it's interesting that you used the word graduation because I remember during the baccalaureate, doing the message for them, and I tell them graduation is not the end of anything.
Mm-hmm.
You graduate to something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a constant movement.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you would use that word. And graduation also speaks of a road to maturation too.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think it was my grandfather that I mourned. Remember I told you
yeah, yeah.
it may have been
It may very well have been that, yeah. I don't doubt that.
And
See-
was it the same day?
I can't remember.
He passed on
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. My,
Our time in the afternoon, I
huh?
think. Our time in the afternoon.
Yeah, 5:30 out of time.
Yeah, because a lot of the shows that you might watch were recorded, you know, Democracy Now! Or whatever.
Yeah.
They didn't report it because they broadcast early in the morning and then rebroadcast.
Right.
Or others that were done before it happened. So.
And cable went like they did with 9/11. I mean, they blanketed everything, but there's no cable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they blacked out everything. So, and that's very, very significant.
Yes.
That's very significant.
But
Because we
isn't
have-
it curious? No, it's not.
Right.
It took this man's transition for everyone to really, because he's been here in the physical all along. But it took his transition for everyone to really get back to the essence of the man.
Yes.
And everything that occurred with the memories relate to the essence of the
Right.
man. But while he was here in the physical, it was like, they didn't, they didn't remember
took it
and
for
acknowledge
granted.
that.
Yeah, took it for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think once he removed himself, once he resigned the presidency, moved back to a more statesmanlike position, there were times when I thought he was very prominent, but they became intermittent, of course. And then as he got older and necessarily had to be concerned or was concerned about his health, then I think, yeah, he sort of...
But I wasn't even thinking about that part, Richard. Everything in terms of the essence of the individual, the groundwork was laid prior to the presidency even. Although his presidency only manifested that a spiritual essence of forgiveness. But I'm not even talking about when he receded in the background physically, because there's so much stuff that has occurred in terms of his essence that even before then that people just chose not to think about. But yet when he transitions, that's what they zoom in on. They zoom in on what he did, what he stood for, what he said, who he impacted, what they felt, and what they felt was a biggie for me. Because, even the jailer, whomever, they went back to what they felt after they heard of his transition. So it's like the essence is the spiritual, and it took release of that spiritual for them to touch bases again with the spiritual roots, in a sense.
I
I
think,
just
go ahead.
so Christ when she just said that.
I think that, we, when we look at South Africa and what happened through forgiveness, it is, maybe a, prototype of, what it looks like when the idea of unicity takes place with the human. You see what I'm talking about? I think it's a spiritual manifestation. I mean, it's physical manifestation of a spiritual truth that transpired there and showed the power of restoration, because forgiveness is about restoration, returning to the place where you were at the beginning. So I think that it speaks to that. Also, I listened to the guy who played him in the movie that's out now. That's ironic too that the movie just finished. And he said that when the text came in saying that Madela had transitioned, he was sitting in a Madela restaurant in New York. And he was, at the time the text came in, he was thinking about the role and looking at the pictures around the wall. And I don't think that was coincidental at all. I don't. So what it means, I don't know. The idea of him coming to New York and to think this country, actually he was thinking the African American community in this country, and to go to Oakland to do the same with Ron Dellums, because like everything else, America comes down on the wrong side of history. With 2008, when they took him off the terrorist watch list. So, come on.
2008?
Wow.
Yeah, 2008.
You mentioned that his jail, did somebody interview him?
Who?
Mandela's.
Yeah.
The guard.
Oh, yeah, somebody did interview the guard. Yeah.
What channel? I'm just curious.
MSNBC.
Yeah.
Okay, because one of the things that I'm a bit hungry for, and I find impossible, is you don't know who's doing what. And I sort of stayed on Al Jazeera because they seem to talk more to South Africans, which I wanted to hear. I didn't want to hear Americans take it over. You know what I mean? I wanted to hear what it meant to South Africans, and then maybe transition to those who'd been physically in some way connected, not who'd made visits.
Right.
But I mean, now it'll sort of go to the surface where the big guys will take over for a while, and everybody else is kind of pushed aside. But I wanted anything that's more human interest. In fact, I was quite impressed that this guy Ali Velci, I think his name is,
Yeah.
who does the finance thing on Al Jazeera, is South African. Originally Indian, South African. His great-grandfather was asked by Gandhi to send his children to the school Gandhi set up. So there's that whole history that he just simply and quietly revealed that, I don't know, it just had a very, I don't know about profound, but attractive influence to me. And I just thought, the trouble with this, even if you're not just meditating on spiritual things, but trying to encapsulate and capture all the things that directly or indirectly Nelson Mandela was able to touch, or in some way by touching influence, it's huge. And I don't know if anybody yet can, and he's even tried. I mean, they talked about aspects, the obvious ones, right? But there are a lot of indirect things, synergistic things.
Yes.
So I don't know how you...
I don't think it's possible to encapsulate all of it.
You're not going to get sort of one program that does it. I mean, first of all, it'd be 5 hours or something, but still.
And even the guy, when they interviewed him, he didn't talk about some of the things that he did.
Yeah.
He couldn't do that. That's why I got the idea. I thought about if the unicity would continue, because when I watched Al Jazeera, the streets were full of youth. And that speaks volumes to me. Also, I believe this wholeheartedly, that, and I use movement very loosely, that no movement can exist unless it's multiracial. There's no way it can continue. It has to be multiracial. And I don't think that he had a clue as to what he was doing or the journey that he was going to take. He just felt it and did it as he felt it. And I look at, and I say that because of my deep involvement in the civil rights movement, the Pan-Africanist movement, the nationalist movement. I saw how it reached the apex and then it just fizzled because the essence of the man never filtered into the people. They were following the man, but the essence never filtered in. And I don't believe that it's possible for the essence of leadership to seep into the people of this day and age anyway, unless it's multiracial. And the multiracial nature of South Africa gives it an opportunity to be the bright star on earth in terms of how men should live together. There's opportunity there greater than ever before. The truth of the power, rather, of leadership is not how you lead while you are physically, while you're in the physical world. Is how you lead after you're gone. What did you leave? What kind of legacy? Does leaders continue after you? That's where you see the true essence and power of leadership. So I think that the essence and power of leadership of Mandela will is being realized, but will be realized even more so in a way that's far from politics and economics. In terms of the emotions and the spiritual sensitivity of the people. I think it would be seen more than that than anything else. Because you cannot get away from the fact that he was the son of a chief, and they had deep spiritual beliefs, and that in itself tells me that there was deep influence with him. He left home because they had an arranged marriage and he didn't want to do that, so he left home and went to Soweto. The idea that he did not, did not seek the privilege that was afforded him also tells me something else. And when you look at leadership is usually when the people are led by people who genuinely care, it's usually by people who have walked away from the privilege that they had before them and take on that role of leadership. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's usually what happens. And you know, you can talk about grassroots leadership all you want. Usually grassroots that are organized by people who have opportunity for privilege, and they don't take it. And I say that because I looked at Stokely Carmichael, I looked at Malcolm X, I looked at Martin Luther King, I looked at, of course, the ones of Africa who I named earlier. I even looked at Cebu Student Organization for Black Unity, a group which I work with intensely, and other groups. All of them were put together or organized by people who had opportunity for privilege. And every one of us in the group that I work with had that opportunity. we had opportunity to do anything that we chose to do, but we chose to put it all on the line for what we believed was right. And that's usually how movements start, and that's usually where leadership comes from. And I believe it's because people who are not facing that are so busy trying to survive until they don't look at it. They look at what can I do? And then when someone comes along and says, this is what you can do. I think that right now, we are seeing something that we are not paying much attention to. The populist movement of 1870 was organized by people who were subjected to poverty, both freed slaves and poor white people. And the northern white people began telling the white people, but you white, you have a better opportunity than those. And that's what killed the movement. But now it's different. Different in that I think the greatest movement that is ever, the groundswell of movement that's taking place in this country is over economic balance.
Yes.
We may look at that like $15 an hour. No, it's much bigger than that. Much bigger. And I see that this is the movement that's going to end up a major populist movement that's going to upset a lot of people and a lot of stuff. Because when you get a group of people who feel like they have nothing to lose, and they are organized by people who know how to organize, it does not end simply because you want it to end. I think that is going to morph into something much bigger than what we see. And the greatest organizers of any movement anywhere in the world is the oppressor. That's the greatest organizer.
The what?
The oppressor.
Oppressor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The Walmarts forces people to come together.
Yes.
The McDonald's, Burger King forces people to come together. So those are the ones who actually, if you can visualize it, pushes everyone into the same corner. So now, and they look around and see that we're not just individuals, but we are one.
It's interesting. I was hearing something on one of the talk shows on NPR, and they were doing different sides of the debate, $15 an hour. And one guy wrote in and he was saying, I'm a paramedic and I'm all for people getting paid more, but I make $15 an hour and that's just too much money for them to have. It was something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And it was so interesting because I'm like, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, he on the page making $15 an hour, being a paramedic.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, dude, if they make more, you should be making more too. You're looking at this the wrong way. Like, why would you want to keep your foot on their necks? So that, like, it's just, and I'm like, once people get to the point where they understand that there's more pie, like, I mean, we're kind of looking at it like there's, if you get this, then I can't have what I'm supposed to have, and that's.
But there are always
false.
people who are brought out to do stuff like that. I
But
mean,
for him, it's a status thing, because you look at it.
Exactly what it
I'm
is.
someone working in Walmart and working at McDonald's too. You see someone who can't.
That's exactly
probably
right.
Don't
he was
have
like,
an
that's
education.
not a skill.
And I'm a
that's
paramedic,
skilled
so
job.
you're below me, so I
Yeah.
should be making more money.
but then he
Status
doesn't,
thing.
and he doesn't understand that if they make 15, you make 25.
That's right.
Hey, this is Rania.
Yes.
I actually have something to say. I was thinking about this whole inequality of pay and so forth, and I don't know if it's about people making too much or not enough, or that's the issue, that we see it that way instead of it being about having what you need for everybody. It's folks who want so much more than they ever had, and then teaching everybody else that that's what you need is so much more, than you ever had. It's like this, we see greed in everybody, and if you don't have that level, then you're not there,
Yeah, and Rainier, you don't have to be a gazillionaire to be greedy.
No.
You can make $7.25 an hour and be greedy.
Oh yeah.
Greed knows no gender, socioeconomic status. Greed is greed, period. And one of the reasons that there has been such a gap in income is because the people who are working below poverty level are greedy. They have been greedy because the greed has said to them, you gonna be rich one day. And my being rich one day does not include what you is me. But that lie has been exposed, or they have seen the truth of the matter by virtue of them trying to live and get to that place where they think they're going to be rich.
That greed separates you.
Absolutely.
Because you can't, just like you're saying, I'm going to be rich. That means that even though I'm currently struggling, I'm going to be okay one day, and I don't have to care about the people who are struggling next to me.
And that's it.
Like, we shouldn't bond together and try to change things, because this is just a temporary state. I'm a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't mean... That's what you said. I remember, I think, last week or something.
Yeah.
That's a new t-shirt.
Is there really?
But I think it's more, it what's the word, spins into more serious behavior. You have people who say, okay, if I can't have it, I'm going to take advantage of whatever there's a greediness in going for food stamps or going down to the food bank when you don't need to go, even as mundane or simple as putting what do you call one of those things which drives me nuts occasionally, those handicap stickers on your car so you get to park, and everybody get out of that car. I'm guessing the handicapped person is home and can't get out of the house, so they're shopping for it. But it's that kind of. So the twist of it is, then so I'm going to take advantage to grab whatever I can. The whole point is, all of that furthers this sense of this separateness instead of the connectedness between us, etc. I think, and just the kind of perversion that comes out of that.
And it's interesting to me too, you talk about that. When we think of our utopian fictional societies, and I say that applied to Star Trek. I mean, not Star Trek. What was it? Maybe it's Star Trek.
It's Star
where
Trek.
it wasn't for money anymore. There was, you got what you needed. You didn't have to worry about trying to one up someone or get ahead by getting the sticker, for the car. You got what you needed.
And go ahead, babe.
That was it.
Okay. All of that comes into play as an effort to keep the human, as opposed to recognizing what it actually is. Because the embracing of the concepts of materialism, the acceptance of the idea that it takes more and more for me to live, keeps us focused on things as opposed to who we are. We don't focus on Adam as much as we focus on the human. And we have not come to grips with the idea that the human is an illusion and that the atom is real. And I think we're getting more to that. That's the sort of thing I had in mind when I was talking about the South Africa being a prototype of what a manifestation was in the spiritual, in terms of them coming together and overriding the differences, or recognize the differences and turn them into strengths. So.
Neat. We talked about Jim Crow laws influencing the atrocities and the civil rights movement influencing Mandela's.
Yeah.
Well, just
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm thinking about like those two energies and kind of giving birth to what happened over there. And what does that mean in terms of like those energies being connected to South Carolina and the end result of those energies being forgiveness and changing the world and the fact that we still have our own work to do? The lesser anoints the greater or something? I don't know.
It does.
I don't know. Like,
It does.
what does all of that mean?
Who knows? Yeah, to talk about what it all means is to define it.
It was like a baby that grew up over there. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And again, you are on the right track by virtue of understanding that the seed of the evil as well as the light emanate from the same place.
Yes.
The same place. And it's proof that the seed of unrightness cannot overcome the seed of rightness. It took 27 years for the seed to grow to fruition, to birth light in a place that were seen as one of the darkest places, if not the darkest on earth. But both came from the same place, which also speaks to the idea of everything emanating from the beginning. The creator of all creates all. So how, what do we do with that? I think the do with it is more of what we are doing. The journey. Was it not also the Europeans who came to South Carolina to study the prison system in the 50s? Because they were the prison system in the beginning was about what is it? What you call rehabilitation?
Yeah.
And other countries came to this country, and to the South in particular, to see how the prisons were operated. And now that has morphed into something that is actually the what is it? A seed of apartheid, the prison system in this country. So again, we see that there is rightness, and I do believe that the settling of this parcel of land called America, the rape of this land, and the genocide directed toward the natives of this land, all of that was to bring the human to a place to realize that there's more than this. There's more than this. That we don't begin to look for more in terms of the spiritual until we get to the end of our rope, so to speak. And the knot in the end of the rope is there to hold on until we can see the more, or to embrace the light, to learn how to do that. The whole, the genesis of the civil rights movement was about embracing light, but it was embracing the light that the material world had to offer. When we talk about equality, education, economics, social, that kind of thing, that was the material light that was looking for.
So when you were talking about the youth were dancing in the street, so was that something that, in a sense, was ushering Was the innocence of South Africa or just the world in general ushering something in?
I just what I believe, yes.
Because of the dance, the dances that they were doing.
I believe it's worldwide.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
okay.
Well, was it a widespread dancing? 'Cause, I mean, the
Yes.
part I saw was in front of his parents' home.
Oh, it
His
was-
home. And I know that's an African stage in the whole mourning process for showing respect. So they were showing their joy, really, at what he was to the parents. They're, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not ecstatic in a sense. But it's genuinely joyful. So they're, you know, they're in the sense of all that he was.
But don't they do different dances
Yeah.
or rituals
Yes,
for a reason?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my thing is, they were ushering in something, the innocents had to have been doing that.
Well, it was
This
more,
is the traditional.
it was more,
Which one? This
it was more than,
is home.
Soweto. It was everywhere. It was, you know, when I looked at, MSNBC and CNN and others, they were in different places in South Africa. And all of them were doing the same thing.
Okay.
So that, it was not just, you know, endemic to the home. It was widespread, which is unusual. The other thing I wanted to point out is that usually, when you see the genesis of a movement or change about to erupt, it usually follows something that could have done it but didn't. For example, Rosa Parks was not the first person to be arrested for not moving from a seat on a bus. As a matter of fact, it had not been that long prior to her doing it that someone else had been arrested, another lady. So that speaks to me and says that it's not her sitting on this seat that starts this. It's something greater than that. You see? Mandela was not the first person to come from Robben's Island. Yeah,
Okay.
something had to happen to cause that to come into being. So what I'm saying is that there's always something that precedes that helps us to see that this is something special, but you don't know it until after it's done. I guess, like he said, everything is seems impossible until you do it.
But I think, yeah, and I forget they had a while back a special on the young lady. I think she was a schoolgirl who did the same thing as Rosa Parks. But so it was sort of a confluence of circumstances that made it possible for that event. And Parks was an activist to be a catalyst, whereas other things. And people who know that there were other events that encouraged things to keep moving forward, but they didn't hit that tipping point or whatever you want to call it. But I
Perfect storm.
the thing that strikes me is I was thinking, I don't know why, but I was thinking about Anwar Sadat.
Yeah.
In his own way, Martin Luther King, Jesus, you know. Everybody had their wilderness period, and what came out of the wilderness period was, it ain't about me.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's what then ultimately you see as the genuineness of what they're doing. Because it's not about them. That's what's this little sweet thing in the Invictus movie when he's out walking and they ask him about his family and he stops and he says, my family is a very large family. It's 43 million people. That kind of thing. Even though it's a Hollywood thing. But it's that ability to go through a sort of trial and realize in the process at the other end, it ain't about you and you leading something. And so I think for him, if we can believe what he says, he accepted those mantles, but he accepted them because he understood they put him in a place where he could use them for a greater good. Because one of his comments was, I'm just an ordinary man.
Yeah. And then, what do you say, I'm retiring from retirement?
But that's the thing we seem to go through is then we say, this great person who still had more promise has left us now. So things have, you know?
And that's one of the reasons I do believe that this is not something that's going to struggle the way the civil rights movement struggled after King. I don't believe that that's going to happen. One of the reasons I don't believe it's going to happen that way is because Africa is the genesis of everything that is, when it relates to humans anyway. And I believe that the genesis of the spiritual essence of our being is beginning to take shape. That's what I believe. I don't think that there are those of us who, with whom I've spoken in the last few months, who felt pressure, who's felt uncomfortable, who's felt not unnerved, but so discombobulated, maybe, I don't know. Just wasn't feeling, it felt out of sorts. And I don't think it was a precursor to the transition as much as I think that that feeling came so you would know when, what it means to be settled, even though you don't know what's coming. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I do feel more comfortable, more peaceful, more calm than I have felt in weeks.
Interesting.
I do.
So you're talking about, you talked with people before
Yes.
people who felt things before he passed?
The agitation, yes.
That's so interesting, because
Yes.
I had the worst day on Wednesday, and I couldn't
Yes.
understand why it happened, and I was like, there has to be something. And I remember what I read on Thursday that he passed, and I was like, well, that's just the capstone.
See, so this agitation I'm speaking of, it's been there with, you know, with people with whom I've spoken, but now it's different. And you could easily say, well, yes, it's different because they shifted focus, you know, to this world event. No, it's bigger than that. And for us to think of it from in those terms is to minimize it, or to make an attempt to minimize it. Sometimes it's best to say nothing if you don't understand or have any inkling of what's going on, or don't have a desire to know. Just
Is that why I felt the pressing then?
yes, I'm saying that everything that has transpired in the last few weeks was agitation, not towards Mandela, no, he gonna die.
Right.
That wasn't it at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's about an upheaval, or it was a period of transition, and the birthing of something fresh, the beginning of something else. So that's what I'm talking about. So it's not that Evelyn felt pressure, or Janice had the worst day, or I had these conversations with people. It's not about that at all. It's much larger than that. It's much more extensive than that. And honestly, you cannot lead anyone if it's about you. People will follow you because they want your position. But to follow you because they trust you, it can never be about you.
Well, they want to be in your, it gets a bit Machiavellian, doesn't it?
Yes,
They want to be in your court,
yes,
because there's prestige, and it gives them a platform to pursue personal interest.
that's right.
Look what's going on with the administration and the previous ones before it. That's,
And I also think that it's significant that the seed of the current president is African, and his mannerisms are emblematic of what they kind of sort of shadow.
It looks like it too when you
Yeah.
first have that step.
Is there a lot of things parallel? There are a lot of parallels there that can be, and then when they talk about he was the first black president of South Africa, no, he wasn't. He was the first democratically elected president of South Africa. Period. So it's not he the first black president. No, period. And for that to come in the same time period that the genesis of all the apartheid in South Africa, being this country, has a African president. You see? I just don't see those things as being diametrically opposed to each other or separate from each other. I see them being definitely connected to each other. I really do.
Can I read something?
Sure.
Which kind of epitomizes what we've been talking about. This is information from verse 87 of the Gnostic Gospel of St. Thomas. And it says, although this body and world may be a vehicle of expression, experience of that divine fullness, neither the physical body nor material world in and of themselves have in them perfect joy you seek. This relates to something Sheldon shared earlier too. The peace, joy, and fulfillment you see comes from deep within yourself, from the Christ light, from the Christ self that is the secret and divine center of your consciousness. It is the truth of every living soul that this divine potential exists, just as the potential within, just as the potential of a whole life exists within a fertilized embryo. It is the question of drawing out what is within you, giving expression to your true inner self so that you actualize and experience enlightenment and liberation of that Christ self. You must draw out what is within you. In this way, you will find fulfillment. Let me share a basic truth with you. I can only attain a true state of health and happiness, being the individual I am in spirit and truth. I must depend upon that which is within me if I am to experience a lasting peace and joy and real satisfaction. So, when the Master spoke that's why the Master spoke of the lost soul being dependent on the world and form and materializations, material stuff for satisfaction, could say wretched, meaning bondage and great pain when you depend on the world and its manifestations. Such a soul is lost to its true self and lost to God. But this is the essence of what he's saying also, that we've been talking about as it relates to the essence of Madela. He's saying, while the Master is giving teaching regarding living from within the necessity of it for our fulfillment, living from within and the necessity of it for our fulfillment, he is also giving a teaching on the birth of love and compassion in ourselves, which is the sacred heart of enlightenment. Basically saying, having awakened to something of the mystery within you, let compassion for those as yet unawakened dawn in you and live in such a way as to manifest a spirit connectedness for yourself and others and so be satisfied in the spirit. So he's saying that we have that obligation, that responsibility. Once it's awakened in us, it's no longer enough to say, I, me, mine, and my own. That if it's awakened in us, then we are in touch with that compassion and that love within us for others. And when you say, Pastor, we can't be tolerant of others, that we have to each person has that divinity within them. That's what that's saying to me too, that we are called to more than just going along with the flow, which is what I thought about as you talk about the hand moving on the earth. It's easy to go along with the flow and be carried by something outside of yourself, just to go along with it. Like, a car behind a truck, and that truck is going, and the truck has got a certain amount of speed, and the car just automatically, it's pulled by the propulsion of that truck. It's pulled along. And it takes energy, it takes effort to resist that and to get out of the flow of what's going on, because if it's related to material world, it has nothing for us. It is not our essence. And we're going to be, we're going to suffer pain, we're going to suffer feeling like we're caught, feeling like we're in bondage, feeling like we're in prison, because we go along with the flow. It is in resisting that it seems like it's a real issue at the time. It seems like a real problem for us at the time. It seems like real pain for us at the time, but it's in that very resistance of going along with the flow, to get along, just to go along, or to go along just, it is in that very resistance that frees us and puts us in touch with our true self. And so that's what I thought about it. I had been reading this, and then as we talked this morning, it seems that Mandela felt that connection of compassion and love in the inner self.
That resonates deeply.
Mhm. Very much so.
You know what you just explained? But now is Christ risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept.
It's
That's
the
what you
same
just
thing.
explained. The resurrection of the messianic awareness, resurrection of truth for those who are in a trance. So when the truth, when life in you is resurrected, you have an obligation to share it so those who are in a trance can also experience that resurrection.
And so that's why we have to be less judgmental than anybody else,
Absolutely.
because it's tied into the compassion and love that we have, just waiting for them to wake up.
The one of the things that I see connected to that also is that longevity is possible and is real if you can continuously focus on the positive and
Yes.
and your health will be better, if not perfect,
Yes.
if you choose not to follow after darkness or the negative, because it is true that your thoughts can heal you or kill you. That's a reality. I got a phone call yesterday evening from Kathy, and she was excited about something she had seen. And of all places, she saw it on Dr. Phil. And she is not one of his fans, period. I do understand why. But anyway, what she saw was they had, the doctors had done an MRI on the brain. And what they found was that when you are depressed, the brain is shrouded in darkness and the outline of the lobes is confusing. But when you're not depressed, when you are thinking positive, it's well defined, is lit up, light is flowing, and every lobe is prominent. So then she said, God, I wish I had recorded so I could get the rest of it too. That's all you needed. I mean, you know, you someone who never looks at this, all of a sudden, bam, there it is.
Yeah.
That's all you needed. But anyway, that in itself speaks to something for me. The whole idea of light and darkness comes into play in every aspect of our lives. Period. Every aspect of it. Like we talk about the power of black energy, of dark energy, but we very rarely talk about the power of the energy of light. In all darkness, there is light. There is death. There is life. In all darkness is light. There is life. But in all life, there is not darkness. In all light, there's not darkness. But in all darkness, there's light. And I think that's important to hold on to, because the darkness does not have the power to alter the light unless the light chooses to be altered. But the light can alter the darkness by virtue of bringing it to the light. The human eye, what this commercial talks about, the human eye can see a candle 10 miles.
Right.
And that in itself says something. Because, you know, when you think about the idea that you don't actually see with your eyes anyway, you know.
And it's 10 miles.
10 miles, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a 10.
That's
No, I'm saying 10, the number 10.
Yes.
And what that represents.
Oh, 10. Oh. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I got you. I'm slow down. Right? Thank you for pulling me back.
I have a question. What is the meaning of
Hold on.
I was looking up on my BlackBerry, but it's going too slow. So,
Lay hands on it, speed it up. Set the thing positive.
I got my hands on it.
That might be the problem, right?
It's right.
It's not working.
It's all.
I don't know. I don't. But
Barbara, where were you
87.
in Thomas?
It was 87, but this is commentary. This is about where he's talking about man is wretched.
You
Which book are you? I mean, like, what? Where did
the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, which is a little different rendition.
No.
It's called the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas. And it related to saying though 87, which talked about wretched is the body that is dependent upon the body.
yeah,
I
in the
just wanted to
Gnostic
find that again.
in the Gnostic Gospels there are what is it 2 or 3 commentaries
Yeah.
on Thomas? Yeah.
Yeah.
With coupled with also the book of Thomas being there.
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
But there's something I wanted
Go ahead, Beck.
to say. That is, I mean, I've kind of always, not always, but I mean, we've talked about the resurrection, and I've had a kind of intellectual understanding that it wasn't just, Christ the man being resurrected anymore. But I think after hearing that, I have a deeper understanding that the resurrection is something that happens inside of people, and resurrecting who we are and how connected we are. That's the first time I've ever really seen that, and that Mandela's passing is the beginning of that happening for everyone, if they're willing.
So it's a seed. He becomes a seed in the womb of beginning.
Like resurrecting what we've forgotten about ourselves.
And I think that ties into what Bob was talking about earlier about the essence of the man, the remembrance of it. Because when something, when we talk about something resonating, we're actually talking about what we remember. Because the spiritual Adam knows all things. So resonation is bringing to remembrance things that we have overlaid with so much other stuff that has no meaning or life at all. So, in my Monday night class, began to talk about the essence of the resurrection beyond a man in a sepulcher being resurrected, because that's not what it's about at all.
And it's not one resurrection.
No, not at all. No,
Now what?
It's not one resurrection.
no.
No, but I mean, don't we say in here it's constant? I mean,
If you allow it to be.
well, I mean, in a way, you could almost say it's going on whether you recognize it and connect to it or not. So it's, you know what I'm saying?
But I think what she's talking about is that if you don't recognize it in you, then it's not real to you.
Well, at the end
So it
of the
doesn't
day,
take
that's
place
what it
in
is.
you.
Yeah, it's just, the other thing I was thinking about through this process, and maybe I'm sick, was that old Tina Turner from the movie with Mel Gibson when he was young, We Don't Need Another Hero. It was sort of that, and that's the sense that I had of it. When something sort of emerges, that's all part of that. Someone is charismatic, whatever words you want to use, as Nelson Mandela, we risk sometimes thinking that it's all risked and it's all potentially lost because he's passed. Instead of somehow understanding it's an affirmation, and it's just another event in a way, or whatever, that tells us how we can connect, and whether we do or not. There are a lot of people that are probably miserable thinking he's passed and the hope that he was has passed away, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to others that don't see it that way.
Well, the other thing it reminds us of is that we each have that capacity in us, that Mandela has, that Gandhi has. And when we connect to that divinity within us, and we live our lives in forgiveness and compassion and love, it truly touches other lives. And we may not even know, just like he did not even know the depth of, or the breadth of that influence. Same with us. Same with us. And so what it tells me is that resurrection in connection to that divinity in us, that we all have what Mandela, we all have the capacity Mandela had.
Well, and when you look at Gandhi, King said that's who influenced him, Gandhi. And Gandhi was a racist of the worst kind. But
There's some truths though.
yeah, but
right?
there were truths in what he said and did. So, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day. So there is a light in all darkness. So you know, you can either focus on
Let me catch that. Broken clock at night,
Twice a day.
you can actually focus on Gandhi's racism, or you can focus on the light that he brought.
the darkness of it.
Yeah, the darkness. It's a choice that should be made. 400 years of South African rule, from the time that South Africa came into existence with white settlers taking over, and Mandela's election to presidency. 400 years of slavery in this country before the emancipation. That's no coincidence. That's no coincidence. I'm done. I'm done. Unless there are questions or observations. Hold on. Okay.